welcome to episode 2 of Geno's Guys. As always, I'm your host, Connor, joined by Matt and Andrew. And we'll just starting off, we want to thank you guys for the support that you gave us on that first episode. I know I'm speaking for myself. I'm sure you guys agree, Matt and Andrew, that we didn't know what we were getting into with this new show. Could have gotten 20 views and that was it. And you probably would have scrapped the idea, but you guys went above and beyond. It's our most viewed video on the channel. Most likely, I didn't look at the Spotify stats, but it's probably our most listened to episode on Spotify as well. So you guys clearly love it. So it's definitely not going anywhere. We're going to probably try to do it even more often. I know I mentioned at the end of the last episode, we'll definitely at least do one or two in October. But if you guys love it as much as you do, we'll try to do it more often than that, especially ramping up towards the season. But yeah, I just really wrap up this little intro. I want to thank you guys. Keep on supporting because it means a lot. I mean, I like we said, me and Matt, we don't know too much yet. I've definitely learned a lot more since the last episode, Matt. I know you have as well, so we're a lot more informed. But if you guys didn't love it as much, we probably wouldn't take the time to learn as much. But we're ready. We looked at the comments. We're gonna start right there. I know there's a lot of comments on that first video, and we'll start with Jana El-Alfy. A lot of you guys were commenting about her and how we didn't mention too much about her. That's no, we didn't mean any harmful intent there. Obviously, it's our first episode. It was 20 minutes long, but you guys are really passionate about her, and there's a good reason to be.
Yeah, she's from Egypt and she's a 6'5" center and she's going to be really good. Unfortunately, she tore her Achilles completely while playing for her home country in the summer, and that was I believe the third or fourth year that we've had a preseason injury. Obviously, a whole bunch more would come to follow that, but like Connor said, we didn't mean any intent because she's going to be a beast, and I honestly think that if she's completely healthy, I think that she'll be good, ready to roll in that center position this year.
And I agree that we didn't do our, entire due diligence on Jana El-Alfy. We could have dove a little deeper. Obviously, seen her FIBA World Cup stats that she put up, 30 points, 20 points a game. Obviously, very impressive. Just in my opinion, I feel like, for as good as she is, I feel like it wasn't crazy to assume that Ice Brady, also a very solid player, would, get a majority of the minutes being, experienced. Jenna hasn't played a game yet, and that was sort of my big thing, and our big thing in discussing it is that she hasn't even played a minute in the Husky jersey, and I feel like, obviously in practice, Geno sees everything, but on the court so far it's been Ice Brady, and it's kind of hard to sway away from that, but you can't deny the talent in Jen El-Alfy, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, she is super talented. I mean, you mentioned she's been injured. I Maybe she's talented enough to be a starter in this team, especially with a weaker front court than the past years. But I also feel like missing a year of basketball. And remember, if you guys remember, she came during that 22-23 season and sat out the spring semester. So she really hasn't played much organized basketball outside of that FIBA World Cup 19U, which I don't get me wrong, she was very good in that. So it's not like she played poorly or anything, but pretty much having what that would make it almost 16 months without playing basketball. I don't know what her role will be right away. I feel like maybe I picture Amari DeBerry last year. She's 6'5". I don't think she's as talented as Jana is, but I can see a similar role where being a big woman off the bench, at least early on. And if she produces, I could easily see her entering the starting lineup. And you mentioned Ice Brady, Sarah Strong is there as well. There's some talented players in the front court, but yeah, I feel like Jana El-Alfy certainly is going to be a major factor for this Husky squad this year. I just hope she's healthy. I know Geno mentioned there are a few injuries that won't be 100% for opening night. I hope that Jana gets healthy as soon as possible and can't wait to see her on the court.
And it is a very deep team, so finding minutes in a rotation like this is very difficult, especially for someone, like I said, I'm not hating, but who has not played yet. There's just so many players coming back from injury, and we have so much talent out there. It's hard to see this team not winning a national championship just with, all of the talent that they have. If they all stay healthy, this team can go a long ways in March.
Yeah, and Connor, those players that won't be ready for the season, I saw this on Daniel Connolly's Twitter feed the other day. AZ Fudd, Caroline Ducharme, and Aubrey Griffin. Aubrey was not a surprise at all. AZ, I figured she might be ready, but either way, they don't need to get people hurt in the first few games of the season because, like I had mentioned, they have a juggernaut of a schedule this year. So no real need to rush anybody back for those first few non-conference games at the beginning of November.
Yeah, so clearly I was wrong. I thought she was on that list, but that means she's healthy then, especially with those three players down. Sure, they're not bigs. It's Griffin, Fudd, Ducharme. They don't play her position, but you're down three bodies. You're gonna need players to step up. So I could see her actually having a big impact right away. But anything else really on this Jana El-Alfy? We only brought it up because we saw a lot of you are passionate about it, which is great. We love having that. We love the comments. It gives us something to talk about. So Matt, you got something?
Yeah, I was gonna just talk about the passion of it. We haven't seen this passion on any of our shows, and it is very nice to be able to, look through these comments and kind of see, oh, maybe we didn't, mention Al-Alfie enough, or maybe we missed this, or maybe we missed that. And that's honestly great because how are we supposed to, continue to grow if we don't, know what's really going on? So shout out to all the comments and all the people out there who are, just trying to help and, giving us a little information.
Yeah, of course. I'd rather you guys comment stuff like that, questioning us as opposed to just leaving it be, because then we'll make the same mistake over and over. And kind of a leeway. Speaking of mistake, I don't like using that terminology, but it's kind of looking like that's the case. A great portion of the comments outside of Al-Alfy were about Geno Auriemma and his comments on Caitlin Clark. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'll play the clip right here.
And you're a great college player, like Caitlin was, the delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players by saying she's going to go in that league and tear it apart. There were actually odds on she's third or fourth in betting odds on being MVP of the WNBA. These people are so disrespectful and so unknowledgeable and so stupid that it gives women's basketball a bad name. Okay, so the kid was set up for failure right from the beginning. So if you're a WNBA player, and believe me, I've coached the best, and I've pissed them off a lot, and they let me know about it. But they were tremendously disrespected. And none of them are going to say it. But human nature is, okay, this kid's coming into the league. And Diana said it best. This kid's in for a rude awakening. And they all jumped over her, but they didn't read the whole thing that she said. But nobody's printing. Diana Taurasi was right. This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality of that league. And she's a rookie. And if you're a WNBA player, if you're any kind of player, you're going to say, I'm going to make a statement. Targeted by society, targeted by her looks, targeted by her reputation, targeted by the disrespect that they've shown to the WNBA. There's a huge target on this kid's back. I thought Cameron Brink said something really smart. She said, no, they're expecting this rookie class to be perfect. This rookie class isn't even one of the best rookie classes in the last 10 years.
Yeah, obviously those comments he made on the Dan Patrick show back in June really came back to bite him because Caitlin Clark was phenomenal. She wasn't the league's MVP, but I mean, even though she was that highly in the odds, I don't think anyone truly expected her to be that. But those comments were just flat out wrong by Geno, and that's something you guys mentioned in the comments as well that you wanted us to address. So here you go.
Yeah, he was wrong. Obviously, she won the Rookie of the Year almost unanimously. One person did vote for Angel Reese. It was 66-1, I believe, in that race. But yeah, I mean, I feel like those comments were from a coach that was mad that that was a player that took out his team. Obviously, we were injury dependent last year, so I'd love to see a healthy last year's team go up against that team. But either way, they beat us. And went to the national championship, and Clark's the Rookie of the Year. So I don't really think it has any effect anymore. I don't think he really meant that personally. I think he was just kind of whatever you want to use to describe it, jealous, mad, whatever word you want to use. I don't think he truly meant that, but it doesn't really mean anything now anyways.
And a lot of people are kind of taking it as, like you said, you think Geno's pretty mad. Obviously, Iowa bumped UConn from the March Madness tournament. And a lot of people are saying that they don't think Geno has that, eye for, a great player anymore. And that that he used to understand more. And now he's kind of getting old and the game's changing. I just don't think that's farther from the truth. If you look back just over the past 2 decades, there's a player from almost every 4 years that has ended up in the WNBA and has, been very successful. If you look, we're going to talk about it in a minute, but the WNBA Finals is about to happen. The two best players on each team are both UConn Huskies, both from, same different generations. Obviously, we have a superstar right now in Paige Beckers and a lot of fantastic, co-players. AZ Fudd is one of them. And I just think that couldn't be farther from the truth.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Gino saying that Caitlin Clark isn't talented, I mean, I don't think he's dumb. She's obviously very talented, one of the most talented players we've seen in a long time. His comments, I feel like, got taken out of proportion because he was speaking about it more in terms of the WNBA than it was Caitlin Clark, more like defending the W as opposed to hurting Caitlin Clark because obviously he has a lot of Huskies, like you mentioned, in the WNBA that are very talented and have been there for many years. Like there's too many to even list off. But yeah, I feel like people just really wanted to turn it on him and they successfully did. And obviously, like I said, it came back to bite him as she was dominant all year.
And a lot of his quotes didn't sound too great. He called her fan base delusional, like you saw in the clip previously. And he just said a lot of things about her game. He compared her to Paige, which I just don't think was necessary. They're their own players. He was talking about how she's not quick enough and not big enough. He was saying that she's not a distributor like Paige, like mentioned in the clip as well. So I just think that it wasn't necessarily taken out of context. I feel like he just worded it wrong. And I feel like if he kind of took a minute, I feel like he kind of just spat a lot of this out. I don't think he was, thinking about Caitlin Clark before going into the interview, but I feel like it was more in a way he just kind of messed up his words. And I feel like if you asked him today about Caitlin Clark, he would have a lot of different things to say.
Yeah, 100%. I just watched that clip, obviously. I saw a lot of comments were saying, let's have Gino back on the show and see what he has to say. But yeah, I agree. I feel like it just got blown out of proportion. While we're on the topic of Gino, I just want to bring this up for you guys, see what you guys think. Gino's been coaching at UConn since 1985. That's before, obviously, all of us were born. Probably most of the listeners, we were young, if even born. But he's approaching year 40, he's 70 years old. The sport is really changing a lot. Just NIL, all the transfer portal. And Gino hasn't won a title in the past 8 years. I feel like, do you guys think maybe if he doesn't win this year or doesn't win the year after, we're nearing the end? Obviously, he's not going to get fired, but I feel like with the age and the changing in the sport, how things are a lot different than they were even 5, 6 years ago. I mean, I don't think it's a crazy thought. I just want to know what you guys have to say about that. Just creating conversation.
Well, when old coaches are in positions like that, they're usually getting pushed out. It's not like they would get fired, obviously, like you said, but there's usually somebody behind them who's like ready. I would kind of say that in the Jim Calhoun situation, but um, I think Gino goes out whenever he wants. He could go out on top if he wins the national championship. He could leave if we miss the tournament, which I don't think will ever happen. But I think he's going to end up going out on his own terms because there's nobody pushing him to like, we think this person could be better than you, so you're done. There's nobody really like that behind him because I feel like when he leaves, then Chris Daly will leave too, or maybe she'll take the head coaching spot. I don't know, but I don't think it's time for him to retire yet. I think he's doing just fine.
I definitely agree. He does not need to go yet. And I feel like just personally, like he's gonna go when he wants. I just don't see a situation where UConn is just dissatisfied with his performance as a coach. I mean, they're making deep runs every year in March. They're constantly, the one of the top five, top 10 teams in the whole country. Obviously, the past few years, I feel like maybe we haven't made it as far as we've wanted to, strictly because of injuries. I feel like with a fully healthy squad that these teams, might not lose to Iowa last year or might not bounce out 2 years ago or earlier. And it just doesn't with Gino, it's complicated because you see over and over again in different sports. Let's look at Bill Belichick, for example. He went out on his own terms, apparently. We don't know, but like you mentioned, there was someone right behind him ready, Gerard Mayo. Bill picked him out years ago. So who knows? Maybe there is someone picked out right now on Gino's staff that he wants to success him, and maybe it will be coming within the next 5, 10 years.
Yeah, I only bring it up because I don't know because we were talking about him about the Caitlin Clark stuff. That's not really why I brought it up, but just all these coaches. You mentioned Bill Belichick. That's a good example. In the men's side, obviously they're all a little older. Jim Boeheim, Coach K, Roy Williams, Jay Wright's younger, but same topic. All these legendary historic coaches are kind of all hanging it up at the same time. And I feel like it's different on the men's side, of course. I feel like part of that is NIL with some of those guys. This is how the sport is changing to almost a professional style of league. I feel like some of those older guys don't want to do it. Geno, obviously, he's always going to get the top recruits, but I don't know, it's kind of a topic I wanted to bring up to you guys. Want to think? I'm not saying I want him gone. I don't know if the listeners are you're thinking that I don't want him to go anywhere. I just it's something to talk about 'cause I feel like it could honestly be a realistic conversation to have over the next couple of years. But you guys got any more last comments about the whole Caitlin Clark Geno thing before we move on?
Just a
No.
misunderstanding. Just a not a misunderstanding, but just a jumble of words that I feel like Gino is eating now.
Yeah, I feel like people are only bringing it up again now because the season just ended. But yeah, we can move on from that. I feel like Geno's fine. But last couple of topics here before we wrap up. I know, Matt, you mentioned it earlier. The WNBA Finals starts tonight when you're listening to this episode. The Lynx versus the Liberty. There are three Huskies represented in this year's finals. Brianna Stewart on the one seed Liberty, and then the Lynx have Nafisha Collier and Dorka Juhas. Collier and Stewart are the two top players in this series. Both happen to be Huskies. Coincidence? I think not. It's just UConn runs the WNBA. But I guess what are your guys' initial thoughts about the series? I feel like the Liberty are certainly the favorite, but the Lynx are not too far behind as not as far behind as people may think.
Yeah, the Lynx are definitely good. Obviously, our very own Collier is kind of carrying that team in a way, but not completely. They took out our local Connecticut Sun in 5 games, and I mean, right now the Liberty just look unstoppable. They took out last year's WNBA champ Las Vegas Aces in 4 games. They beat them 3-1, so that was just domination. Took out Asia Wilson, the unanimous WNBA MVP, and I honestly think that Brianna Stewart is going to win her whatever number ring, 8, 9, one of the most winning athletes in all of sports is going to win another one because the Liberty are going to defeat the Lynx in 5, I think.
And Brianna Stewart, that team is obviously the topic of conversation. Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, very popular, very good team. But I just feel like Nafisa Collier, what she's been doing throughout this whole postseason run has been almost historic. She's kind of popped up now as one of the faces of the WNBA, which I feel like you couldn't really say a year ago. The last game, the clinching game against uh, Connecticut, she had 27 and 11 on 62% from the field, which is just amazing. She's just blown up in this playoffs. If she can somehow take down New York here, this would be one of the greatest runs from a women's basketball player we've seen in a long time in the WNBA. If she earns that ring, she has her kid at almost every game. It's pretty funny, but she's definitely popped off here as one of the best players in the whole league.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Nafisa Collier, she's averaging 27 points per game in the playoffs. No other Lynx player is averaging over 14, definitely carrying the freight. And the Lynx kind of came out of nowhere because all year, I feel like at the top, it was the Liberty, the Aces, and the Sun. Mostly the Liberty and the Sun. The Sun kind of fell off. The Aces fell off earlier in the season, but the Lynx just consistently, led by Collier, just kept on winning and winning. And now they're in the finals. Obviously, when I think of the Lynx, I think of another former Husky, Maya Moore, who's no longer with them. But this is a completely different team. She's been gone for a few years now. Do I think they have what it takes to win this series over the dominant Liberty squad? I don't think so. I I think it'll be in 4 games. I think the Liberty will take it. It's just they're so talented with Brianna Stewart. Sabrina Ionescu is one of the best players in the league as well. They're just so deep at every position. It's just tough to beat. And yeah, if I had to make a finals prediction, I'm going Liberty in 4.
And I want to bring us back to the Geno point here, because obviously you mentioned Maya Moore with the Lynx. I mean, if you don't think Geno has the eye for talent anymore, look at Nafisa Collier right there. Spans a few decades. So honestly, shout out Nafisa Collier.
Yeah, it's just awesome to see all these Huskies still playing in the playoffs. Like I mentioned, I'm pretty sure there's a Husky on every team, or at least there was at one point in the WNBA. So that's pretty much all we got for that topic. A couple more little small ones before we wrap up episode 2 here. I'm sure you all have seen, and if you haven't, it's very unfortunate. Nika Mule playing overseas suffered a pretty gruesome injury, an ACL injury. If you saw the video, it's a tough video to watch because if you haven't seen it, it's the fans. There's no fans in the arena in the stands. I heard that's a separate issue why that was the case, but there's no fans, so it's an empty, echoey arena, and she's just on the ground crying, screaming. It's really a tough watch, but yeah, what are you guys' initial reactions to that?
I mean, it's pretty terrible. I feel like she was one that in her entire career was never really missed that many games. I mean, she's one of the toughest players that this university's ever had, and just to see her go down like that because she would never fake an injury or something like that. Like I just mentioned, she's one of the toughest players that we've ever had, and just to see her go down like that after the season she had last year at Connecticut to getting drafted and not playing as much as everybody thought she would, and then making her debut in Turkey and just being her like that. Like she clearly knew as soon as it happened that she had torn her ACL. It is like you said, it's a tough watch, but she's tough and she's going to come back stronger than ever. And it's great to see. I know I figured something was up when I saw Lou Lopez Seneschal and Dorka Juhas both posted on Twitter just a bunch of sad emojis, and I figured that something had happened. And unfortunately, was that Nika had torn her ACL. But she's going to come back tougher and let the league know who she is.
Yeah, for sure. Very unfortunate. And honestly, the fact that, they have to go overseas and play these games during the off season is a separate issue in itself, but it definitely does, stink. So it sucks to see, these underpaid players have to go overseas and, play all year round, risking injuries. And it does suck that it's a torn ACL and you can't necessarily control that. You can't like prevent yourself getting a torn ACL. It's one of those things that could just happen at any time, and it definitely does suck. But she's on the road to recovery now, so hopefully, she gets better soon, is back playing.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that point about that the fact she even has to be over there because I was gonna bring that up next. It really is unfortunate. This is how the WNBA functions because they don't make a lot of money. That's not a secret. They don't make a lot of money playing in the season. They have to pretty much play a second whole season overseas, and they honestly probably even make more money over there than they do in the States. But you think about like the timeline for all these players, especially like ones that are in like the rookies coming out of college like Nika Mule played deep. Like she played into April for the Final Four, and then she has what, maybe a month or so, maybe a little longer off before the WNBA season kicked off in May, and then obviously she had a bit of a break when the Olympics were going on. But it's playing nonstop basketball. The season's still going on for the WNBA, and she's already playing overseas because the Storm were eliminated already. But it sucks to see it. It just raises the question that why are they doing that? Could that change in the future? I feel like we're almost might be trending in that direction, seeing how much the WNBA is blown up this past year, especially since Caitlin Clark got in the league. I feel like could we be getting to? I think it's still a long ways away before we even enter that conversation of they make enough money they don't have to do that. But yeah, it's just really unfortunate to see. I know she'll come back stronger than ever, like you said, Andrew. She's a very tough kid, and I know she didn't play as much as she wanted in that first year with Seattle. And this doesn't help that at all. But I know the way how talented she is, she'll definitely bounce back. All right, you guys got anything else? That's all I wrote down for today's show. Any last comments before we wrap up? Guess not. So this was a lot of fun doing this again. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did talking some woman. This was more of a general women's basketball because we're gonna get into more of the UConn like season previews down the stretch here later in the month. But Matt, you got one last thing to add before we close?
I was just gonna say, keep commenting, and honestly, if you want, you could leave us questions because we'd be happy to answer them. Obviously, off season, it's a little bit slow, so it's awesome to kind of read the comments and have things to talk about. It will definitely help us put out more of these videos. So if you want to see more, I would definitely just leave more comments, ask more questions, and we'll definitely get to those.
Yeah, definitely. And we love the comments. We probably got more comments on that our first episode of Geno's Guys than we did all of our How About Them Huskies episodes combined. And we've been doing that for this is now our third season. So you guys love it. We love that you love it. So yeah, keep on commenting. But next time you see or hear from us, I feel like we're gonna likely be doing multiple season previews. That's at least my goal. I want to maybe do a set one episode for the guards and one for the front court. I feel like it's such a deep roster, deep talented group. I feel like you could certainly break it up. So I don't quote me on it. I'm not making any promises, but next time you hear from us, we'll be doing a season preview of the guards for the UConn. Obviously, Paige Beckers, yeah, easy go on and on. A lot of talented guards, but look for that in the near future when, I don't know, probably closer to the season, maybe a couple weeks. But hey, if you guys love this, maybe we'll do it even sooner. We'll find another topic to talk about even sooner. But yeah, until then, thank you guys for watching.